Drugs and guns at a shopping center right here on the First Coast you probably go to often. Tonight, we're digging deeper into the arrest of several drug traffickers in Jacksonville.
And court records reveal that a heroin exchange happened at the St. John's Towncenter. Our Juliette Dreyer joins us live now from the very popular family and shopping destination with what we've learned. Juliette?
Heather and Anthony, we've all been here to the Towncenter. It's one of the most popular shopping spots in Jacksonville, and maybe that's why it's so shocking to learn what allegedly happened. A heroin deal here in the Dillard's parking lot here behind me. That's according to court documents. But a retired JSO narcotics officer tells me he's not surprised to learn this at all.
Knowing that this stuff is going on, like in the midst of that and like shopping around it, it's concerning.
Natasha Martin is more than a Towncenter shopper. She also works at Old Navy, nearby the Dillards.
Knowing it's a couple of parking lots away, like I could be there. I was there like by Dillard's last night. Like that's kind of like crazy.
Last week, JSO announced the arrests of more than 10 alleged drug traffickers, the result of a nearly year-long investigation. Court documents describe a heroin trafficking ring involving some of those arrested. An arrest affidavit says a heroin deal in September was originally planned for a Cracker Barrel, but ultimately went down in the parking lot of the Dillards in the St. John's Towncenter.
That doesn't surprise me one bit.
Kim Varner is a retired JSO narcotics officer.
I guarantee you there are drug deals done probably in the shopping centers in this city, and if not the town center, and shopping centers in this city every day, probably 2 or 3 times a day.
In fact, Varner says dealers often choose public places intentionally.
A lot of times when you're doing drug deals, you don't know the person who you're dealing with, so you're kind of skeptical about doing it behind closed doors, so you'll try and find a wide open location to do the deal.
While drug deals are inherently dangerous, Varner says shoppers aren't particularly at risk.
Guns and drugs go together like peas and carrots, so the possibility is always there when you're dealing with drugs, but usually deals are done in wide open areas like that to keep the danger level down.
So what's the solution? Varner says the key is to get the traffickers out of Jacksonville, and these arrests send a message.
You can't come and set up shop here in Jacksonville. You know, if so, chances are you're going to get knocked off one day.
I did reach out to representatives for the St. John's Towncenter to see what they're doing to prevent crime on their property and how they're protecting their shoppers. So far, I have not heard back. I also reached out to JSO to see if they'd be upping patrols in the St. John's Towncenter, but I have also not received a response. Live on the South Side, Juliette Dreyer, First Coast News on your side.